We begin tonight with new claims by the president, claims that don't stand up to the light of day. Today, the president claimed, and these are his exact words, that, quote, President Obama and other presidents, most of them, didn't make calls to families of fallen American troops. They did. He claimed that President Clinton's FEMA director gave him an A-plus grade on his handling of the aftermath of hurricanes, including Puerto Rico. He didn't. We're keeping him honest tonight on both fronts. We begin with the president's lunch with the Republican he loves to needle, but needs on board to get anything done, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. The same Mitch McConnell he's been feuding with in private and openly for months.
We are probably now, despite what we read, we're probably now, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, closer than ever before. And the relationship is very good. We're fighting for the same thing.
Well, that was today. Again, this is the same Mitch McConnell he's been slamming, who leads the very same GOP lawmakers he was criticizing just 2 hours earlier today.
And I'm not going to blame myself, I'll be honest. They are not getting the job done. We've had health care approved, and then you had a surprise vote by John McCain. We've had other things happen, and they're not getting the job done.
That criticism came in reaction to his former chief strategist's recent shot at the GOP establishment and his pledge to primary Republican incumbents next year.
Yeah, Mitch, the donors are not happy. They've all left you. We've cut your oxygen off, Mitch, okay?
Yet, even as the president echoed Bannon's insurgent critique of Republican lawmakers, he also seemed to be looking ahead to his lunch with the establishment majority leader. He seems to be trying to have it both ways.
There are some Republicans, frankly, that should be ashamed of themselves, but most of them, I tell you what, I know the Republican senators, most of them are really, really great people that want to work hard and they want to do a great thing for the American public. But you had a few people that really disappointed us. They really, really disappointed us. So I can understand fully how Steve Bannon feels.
He knows how Steve Bannon feels. Well, despite today's positive talk about McConnell slamming the Republican establishment, especially McConnell, it's been a presidential favorite. Just about 9 weeks ago, the New York Times reporting that a phone call between the president and McConnell degenerated into a profane shouting match. In the past, he's also spoken publicly about his problems with McConnell.
But he has to
talk about your relationship with Senator McConnell.
I just want him to get repeal and replace done. I've been hearing repeal and replace now for 7 years, but I've only been doing this for 2 years, and I've really only been doing this for 6 months, but I've been running. So now it's almost 2 years, and all I hear is repeal and replace. And then I get there, and I said, where's the bill? I want to sign it first day, and they don't have it.
And when the president isn't talking, he's tweeting. Mitch, get back to work. Put repeal and replace, tax reform and cuts, and a great infrastructure bill on my desk for signing. You can do it. I requested that Mitch M. and Paul R. tie the debt ceiling legislation to the popular VA bill, which just passed for easy approval. They didn't do it, so now we have a big deal with Dems holding them up, as usual, on debt ceiling approval. Could have been so easy. Now a mess. Majority Leader McConnell, for his part, has suggested that the president was too green to understand the ways of Washington.
Now, our new president had, of course, not been in this line of work before, and I think had excessive expectations about how quickly things happen in the democratic process.
Well, to that one, the president tweeted, Senator Mitch McConnell said I had excessive expectations, but I don't think so. After 7 years of hearing repeal and replace, why not done? Well, today the president seems to be singing a different tune. We'll see how long this lasts.
We are probably now, despite what we read, we're probably now, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, closer than ever before. And the relationship is very good.
Tonight, something we simply have not seen before. Every president, going back to the beginning, comes into office with his own ideas about how to govern, his own priorities, his own agenda, some or even all of it differing from the previous chief executive. Never, though, have we seen a president so seemingly bent on reversing, negating, even obliterating his predecessor's signature accomplishments. Today, President Trump struck a body blow at Obamacare. He did the same to the multi-country nuclear agreement with Iran. And over the last 9 months, the president has reversed or tried to reverse a long list of President Obama's actions on immigration, on children of undocumented immigrants, the Paris Climate Accord, Cuban President Obama's Clean Power Plan. If you want to know what President Trump is against, you only have to look at what President Obama was for. And in all fairness, none of this should be a surprise. He campaigned on much of it, and if nothing else, he's keeping his promises now. What may be surprising, though, or at least being widely debated, is how much of this is personal. What also stands out in both actions today is how each one shifts responsibility and accountability away from the White House onto Congress. And on health care, how little consideration was given for the consequences of undoing something, Obamacare, without a replacement for it.
One by one, it's going to come down, and we're going to have great health care in our country. We are going to have great health care in our country. We're taking a little different route than we had hoped, because getting Congress, they forgot what their pledges were. So we're going a little different route. But you know what? In the end, it's going to be just as effective, and maybe it'll even be better.
That was the president today after announcing late last night he was immediately ending cost-sharing subsidies that reimburse insurers for reducing deductibles and copays of lower-income Americans on Obamacare. Nearly 6 million people benefit from them. The president put their fate in the hands of Congress. In the White House Rose Garden today, President Trump was asked why, after 12 days, he still hadn't made any public statement or comment about the 4 American soldiers killed during an ambush in Niger. It was the deadliest combat incident since he took office, and yet there was silence, not even a tweet. Today, the president said he wrote personal letters to their families and planned to call them later this week. Then he claimed his predecessors, including President Obama, didn't call the families of fallen soldiers, even though that is a well-established tradition that previous presidents did carry out. Last hour, I spoke to former Clinton White House Chief of Staff Leon Panetta, who said this.
I think it would be well for President Trump, we're now 10 months into his administration, that rather than seeking some kind of scapegoats in the past with President Obama or other presidents, that he now accept responsibility for what he does. And he can figure out his own approach to how he deals with loved ones who've been lost in the field of battle.
Back now with the panel. I mean, Jason, was this just a way of deflecting attention on the fact that he had not said anything public about this, even though he had time to go play golf and tweet out and watch television, to just kind of turn this to an attack on former presidents?
Well, I think the president probably could have chosen his words a little bit more carefully on this one, and he walked it back a little bit when he said that President Obama, I think, probably did sometimes, and maybe sometimes he didn't.
He walked it back because I've read the full quote. He ended up basically saying, "Well, I'm not sure. Somebody told me."
People are
could be they did. Could be they did.
The broader point being that I don't think that any president has had 100% record of calling the family of every single fallen soldier during the time that they're in office.
Why bring this up? Why? I mean, why is the president of the United States? I mean, it's
because I think the question, the way that it was being presented to him, I think is trying to draw division on the question and try to make it seem like the president wasn't doing his job or wasn't.
No, because the question is really about why is he silent for 12 days when you have 2 Green Berets and 2 soldiers.
Yeah, so I think that's an important point. I think there's something that we're kind of missing here that I saw today from the president, and that is some genuine emotion about how hard it is to be president. And when you're no, hold on, hold on. Let me finish
this. This is the
this.
president who said he doesn't like soldiers who have been captured.
That's right.
Hold on.
I mean, so does he
Anderson,
just? If this was a successful operation,
I think this is.
would he have said
this
anything
is an
about
important
it?
Point. I think we saw some genuine emotion from the president when he said it is hard to call these folks, to call these families, and as you're writing these letters. And I think he kind of was realizing that as he was saying those words. And I think that was a very honest comment that was coming through. No,
Jason,
let me go ahead and finish here.
No,
and I think because it is. And look, you can go through and you can Google and see that not every single president has called 100% of the families of fallen soldiers. But again, as I said in the beginning, it's probably the president could have chosen his words a little bit differently.
This is why. Because he's incapable of empathy. We have seen this over and over and over again. What Jason misinterprets as genuine emotion is Donald Trump making it about himself again. This was not about him. But in everything he does, it's about him. This should have been about him and expressing condolences for those fallen heroes, period. He had no problem doing this a couple months ago when we lost special ops guys in a raid in Yemen that went bad, that he ordered. He was right there to go. He was actually there for the arrival ceremony of one of the Navy SEALs in Dover. So this whole thing about, oh, it's just too hard, that's what being president of the United States is. And it's not about him and his emotion, and that's what he always turns things into. But President Bush, he met with hundreds of Gold Star families. He wrote letters to every single one of them, because that's something that's, as was commander-in-chief, that is one of the more sobering jobs that you have to do.
Right.
But Donald Trump finds time to do everything else. He can tweet about, the NFL and tweet about all kinds of other things. But the fact that he didn't make it a priority
By the way,
and do this,
the former White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations under the Obama administration, Alyssa Mastromonaco, tweeted, "That's an effing lie to say President Obama didn't call the family members of soldiers KIA. He's a deranged animal."
Yeah.
It is hard. I think Jason is right about the moment where Trump was talking about the difficulty of the job and the difficulty of talking to families of the fallen, but it was completely undercut by the fact that he made up a lie about the former presidents and what they do. So that moment was just destroyed by what he said previous to that. And another good example of why it's important to fact check him in real time. I think it was a reporter that sort of pointed it out, pushed back, and immediately Trump sort of backed down and said, "Oh, okay, I'm wrong. Someone told me that."
It's interesting, Paul, because after Charlottesville, of course, his reason for not condemning neo-Nazis right away was that he needed to, he doesn't like to speak without all the facts being in place. And then, he says this thing just off the cuff and then tries to walk it back by saying, well, I don't know, somebody told me, I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe not.
It's where he reveals his character as lacking. It is hard. It's very hard. I accompanied President Clinton August 13th, 1998. We welcomed back the bodies of diplomats who'd been killed in terrorist attacks in Dar es Salaam and in Nairobi. And it was awful. It was hard. You know what's harder? Burying your son. That's what those families have to do for those four men. And yeah, it's hard for the politician. It is. It's really hard. It broke Bill Clinton's heart. I'm sure it breaks President Trump's heart when he contacts these families. But he attacked the Khan family last summer, who laid their son on the altar of freedom. Humayun Khan was a captain in the United States Army. He gave his life for our country, and he attacked that family who has known pain that he will never know, we hope. And it shows just what a completely morally bankrupt man is our commander-in-chief. He is unworthy of those men who serve under him.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll continue this discussion when we come back. We're talking about the president's remarks about 4 fallen soldiers in Niger and his criticism of past presidents, which happens to be false. Here's the moment when he was asked about that, when he was fact-checked in real time. This is how he dealt with it.
And earlier you said that President Obama never called the families of fallen soldiers. How can you make that claim?
I don't know if he did. No. I was told that he didn't often, and a lot of presidents don't. They write letters. I do. Excuse me, Peter. I do a combination of both. Sometimes it's a very difficult thing to do, but I do a combination of both. President Obama, I think, probably did sometimes, and maybe sometimes he didn't. I don't know. That's what I was told. All I can do is ask my generals. Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything. But I like the combination of, when I can, the combination of a call and also a letter.
I don't know, that's what I was told. We should also point out back in 2012, then Citizen Trump tweeted out, or I guess retweeted an article from some blog that said that President Obama was using auto signature on letters to the families of the fallen, and the Obama administration disputed that. So,
but it's not just that he didn't call or send letters. This is, I think, the first time he's spoken about.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the whole point of why this came up, is why 12 days go by without him even tweeting about it.
You know what I expected to hear?
What happened? I mean, we know Trump by now. When embedded in a question is a perceived attack on him, and there was in the case of this question, why haven't you said anything for 12 days? He responds by lashing out and criticizing people, and his first instinct was to do that and to criticize Obama for not having done X, Y, or Z. And you could kind of see the Trump expository thinking in the moment as he's crafting this attack that turns out to have no basis in fact, and then spent the rest of the day gradually kind of walking knocking it back as the facts were presented, and he tried to wriggle out of it.
And then he has the audacity to say fake news about things that are verifiable facts, but he's the first one to yell fake news about things that he doesn't like. And he's the biggest purveyor of fake news every single day.
It's interesting that he doesn't take a different tack, which I think most adults would take, which is, I'm sensing in your question a criticism. Let me tell you, it's been an extraordinarily busy week, or I've actually written to the family. It's rather than lashing out, it's sort of a.
I thought he